Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your cannabis business podcast. We've got a couple of guests today, starting off with Josh Hershey. All right, Josh is the president of Timeless Vapes, a cannabis lifestyle brand, and Vlad Valmy, sales director at Thompson Duke Industrial, where he specializes in vape devices, filling, and capping equipment. Gentlemen, thanks for being on the Talking Hedge.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So we're going to jump into a few things. I kind of wanted to set the tone a little bit. There's a couple of articles. I'll put a link to the description after this live event. But essentially, just running through a couple of articles to lay the framework of what you see versus the reality. We're going to kind of use that as a framework to move forward with this discussion between pre-rolls and vapes. Starting off with this first article. And I'm just going to tell you about the headlines because I think it's important to look at this first one. And this first headline is "The openness to medical cannabis uses fairly low." And then this next one is talking about from Forbes how marijuana use could increase the chance of heart disease. But then on the other side, we see this reefer madness where demand for illegal pot soars in California due to high taxes. Quick side note, I'm pretty sure that's not why Glass House was selling. It was on the back door because of high taxes. But then you have Oregon cracking down on illegal cannabis grows. You've got cannabis deliveries in New York on scooters and bikes and illegal bodegas and pizza trucks and ice cream trucks. You've got Mexico buying illegal stuff out of California. So as you hear about there's no demand for medical cannabis, why are we hearing that? So there's an article about how smoking loss is cool in the United States. So are these bigger companies nervous about lower sales, lower alcohol? We've seen in Washington State, where I'm from, we have higher taxes in cannabis than alcohol for the first time. Smoking's losing its cool. There's a lot of these older industries that are nervous. And yet what we're going to lead off with is we see the reality that pre-rolls are the number one selling product. Depending on where you're at, might be vape pens, which is why I have two experts here to kind of dive into the reality of what's happening instead of maybe some of the things and headlines that we're seeing. So between vapes and pre-rolls, you guys are the subject matter experts. Anything you want to add to that diatribe I just threw out there?
Sure, I'll jump in, and then if you want to go after Vlad, that's great. But awesome. Yeah, I mean, look, I think the amazing thing about cannabis is there's new articles every day, and even from some of the same sources, like you mentioned, Forbes. You see one thing saying, illegal cannabis sales are up and legal cannabis sales are down, and then somebody sent me an article this morning from Forbes saying, by 2027, legal cannabis is going to be a $45 billion industry. So I think everybody's got their ideas on what the market's going to look like and what it is today. I mean, we still see a very healthy market in general for legal cannabis. And as you see states come on and recreationalize, like Missouri this year, which is one of the states we're in, you see that huge demand spike, both from people in the state, and in all the surrounding states where they don't even have medical programs. So you can see that when you see a state like Missouri go from, 30 million in retail sales in January, their last month of medical, to 136 million in March, 2 months after they've gone rec. With some people saying 30 to 40% of that coming from out of state. Obviously, there's still a huge demand of people that want to, use medical or recreationally, non-black market cannabis and specifically around vape and pre-rolls. Those are our two biggest categories. We started out 10 years ago here in Arizona as an original vape company, and this was really rudimentary vapes back then, like where we were, open blasting and put oil in e-cigarettes. But, nobody had really seen vape at that time. And now obviously over time through distillation and through people like Thompson Duke with the equipment they make and through people like C-Cell and and you've seen the quality of the vape process and the vape itself improve so much. But, and then our other big product line is our pre-rolls we call Tumble. It's another huge category for us, an infused pre-roll. And we've seen that category take off here in Arizona and across the country, anywhere they're allowed, So there's still, I think, a huge amount of demand for both those categories. Obviously, there's a huge convenience factor for both of them. As you see more recreational consumers come on, and more cannabis connoisseurs that have been there a long time, there's always a place for both the vape and the pre-roll. But I think the convenience factor is always going to make it a huge a product line, or both of them huge product lines. Also, kind of the discretionary side of the vape. You can bring a vape out to an event or into a concert and smoke it without a lot of people really noticing what you're doing or causing a lot of reaction, like it would be if you pulled the bong out at a or even a pipe at a concert. So I think for those two reasons, we still see a huge amount of growth opportunity and a huge amount of demand. And I think, again, there's always going to be this illicit market. I mean, I wasn't alive back in the 20s and 30s when alcohol came out of prohibition, but I'm sure that first generation of people that were so used to buying illegal alcohol, continued to buy illegal alcohol even when it became legal. And then as generations go by and it became less stigmatized and it became more unusual, and it became more easy to get from a legal standpoint. Now today to go buy illegal black market alcohol sounds crazy, but I'm sure back in the 20s and 30s it didn't. And I think cannabis is quickly going through that same cycle.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see people buying pre-rolls out of people's trunks in 5 years either, but it's going to sound just as crazy. Vlad, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say on our end, we still see a healthy demand for our machines, which is a reflection that the market is still growing. It is a newer market, and we are going to be facing this kind of back and forth between the illicit market and the actual market. So it's one of those things where time can tell where this market's going to land, but it's just slowly and surely becoming more and more going towards the legal market, and I think that the growth is there.
Mm-hmm. Vlad, back to you. Why do you think pre-rolls are the number one selling product in the cannabis industry?
I would just say ease of use. It really breaks down to the end user wanting something that they can take out a package and use it right away. Flower is attractive to many people, but it does require getting tools to use. A pre-roll, you just need a lighter and you're ready to go. So I can't, besides a vape device, the pre-roll is probably one of the easiest forms of enjoying cannabis.
Yep. Price and convenience, I would say, is the top two decision makers for anything. And that's probably why the two of you guys are on this podcast right now. Price and convenience are driving those decisions as we speak. So absolutely, yeah. As this guy said, it's super convenient. Trayvon is makes a lot of comments on the show, making the obvious statement and comment that it's super convenient. Price is another thing. But back to you, Josh, about vapes. From your perspective, on the growth and evolution of the vape market, can you describe some of the trends that you're seeing?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
I just want to point out like the really long pins that we used to have. We don't really have those anymore. We've got like really small, discrete ones now. To your point, I'm going to Seahawks golf tournament this weekend. I won't be bringing blunts with me. I'm going to be bringing vapes, even though blunts are my guilty pleasure. I've got to be a little bit more discreet at this tournament.
Yeah, I think the vape is the most discretionary cannabis product or way you could smoke cannabis, available, other than maybe like a gummy where you consume it. But, for that smoking experience, I think vape is definitely most discretionary. I mean, we, as I mentioned, we've been in vapes for 10 years. We're celebrating our 10th year in cannabis this year. And we're really early in the vape game and have seen it, the evolution of it a ton. Like I said, from, both the quality of the oil and the distillate all the way through to the quality of the hardware. And of course, the machinery that we've gotten to produce it, has come, along a long way in a very quick period of time. I mean, we're kind of known for our cases, these little plastic cases that hold our carts. And so we still do kind of use a long pin, but it's discretionary inside the case. And we can have a lot of fun with the case by teaming up with different artists and collaborating and doing fun stuff with that. So we still think the medium itself, you can have a lot of fun with, but it's very practical. But yeah, I mean, we're seeing continued, growth in different forms of, extraction. Of course, we distillation, when we first started doing that, 7-8 years ago, was revolutionary. We still think the distillate vape pen it's still the dominant pen on the market. As you look out there and you look at people like BDS and you say, hey, what's the top selling vapes? Even though maybe a lot of the talk is around live resin, which I think there's still a great place for. And that really came a long way in the last couple of years. And now you're seeing stuff like solventless, which we're launching our own solventless pen later in the year. But at the end of the day, when you really look at the numbers, I think 60 to 70% of the vape sales still across the country, and even in places that are very mature like California, are, distillate, because people like the convenience. People like, the taste. I mean, at the end of the day, the true connoisseurs really love the live resin and the solventless, but your average consumer likes the fruity flavors that you get with, the distillate pen. So I think there's a lot of evolution in, how the product is extracted and what the form of the product is. And solventless, like I said, which is starting to take the market today, is the most pure, kind of true to form of flowers you can get in a vape. But I think there's still a huge amount of users that want that good, better, best, and want those different, points and tiers that they can get across the full spectrum of vapes.
Mm-hmm. Vlad, we're seeing some trends with the pre-rolls being infused. So it's whether you have keef in it or oil and then keef on the outside, or there's now this new hash strip you can throw in there. Whatever it is, people tend to want to add more to their pre-roll. But I'm also wondering about some certain challenges that you might be seeing too. I went down to Vegas recently to visit Paxium, a pre-roll manufacturer. I had a pre-roll. I was smoking pre-rolls and they clogged. Big issue. Not their machine, but ones that I had bought on the strip. And then vape. I brought a vape too, and then the cart didn't work. So I was completely out. But luckily, I checked out a video, and there was some wire or something somewhere that I needed to fix. So there's always these little weird quirky things that need to be ironed out. But Vlad, from your perspective, what are some of the unique challenges and opportunities that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, from our end, we're seeing that there's a huge demand for infused pre-rolls, to the point that we were able to develop a machine for pre-roll infusion to meet that demand, right? And create a machine that was specifically infuse a pre-roll in the right area, and so that it's not making oil go all over the pre-roll, kind of hitting this Goldilocks sweet zone where it's like right in the middle, and allowing the end user to put as much oil as they need in that section so it can saturate the flower and create a better product, better pre-roll.
Mm-hmm. Josh, you are a parent company, multiple cannabis brands. How do you guys ensure the brand differentiation and maintain a strong market presence in an increasingly competitive industry?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's our bread and butter. We're not vertically integrated. We make CPG branded products, and we have like our timeless vapes, and we have our tumble infused pre-rolls are our two top lines. But I mean, that's our focus, and we've stuck to that being our focus. So we invest heavily in really marketing the product and building that brand. And like we said, early on, is that we're a lifestyle brand. We want consumers to feel like our brand is something that they're drawn to and that they want to have on them. And so that involves us making sure we're doing being part of the culture and the community you're in, and doing the things that real lifestyle brands doing, and doing it authentically and consistently. And so coming up out here in Arizona where we're based, we were very part of the local scene and the original cannabis scene, and we're very involved in a lot of the local, cultural stuff and community stuff out here. And as we've gone to new markets, we've taken that same playbook and really found, people that also grew up in those markets like Missouri or California or Oklahoma or Ohio, and given them the playbook and let them really bring it to life in a very local and authentic way, in each market we go to. And we think that's what really separates is, people still are drawn to a brand. I know pricing is key in a lot of things, but people choose and will pay a premium if they feel very strongly about the brand and feel that the brand, relates to them. And it's something that they feel, is tied in with what they love. And a lot of people are very tied in with their local culture and their local community. And I think that's something that we really always try to crack into and say, hey, we want to be that national, house of brands and build these national brands, but make them feel very local in each market we're in. Because, we believe cannabis ultimately is a localized market, has been for a long time, even though we are nationalizing, but with federal illegality, there's still such a local element to it. And there's a local element to people, in anything and that they feel strongly about in their culture and their community.
Mm-hmm. Let's switch gears to automation. I think that's an important part about getting kind of these products into the hands of masses is by reducing the prices, increasing the convenience. Price and convenience is what it's all about. So I went to ChatGPT. It's an artificial intelligence platform, I guess. And I asked it some questions about your mottos or slogans or taglines that you guys could incorporate for fun. So, Josh, this is what it came up with for you. It said, to unlock the essence of time with timeless vapes.
I like that.
Absolutely great.
Vlad, bringing high quality to the cannabis industry, one roll at a time.
One roll at a time. That's fun.
Josh, experience the timeless difference. Vaping perfected. And then Vlad, get your roll on with Thompson Duke Industrial. We're jointly committed to excellence. Have either of you guys incorporated ChatGPT, or are you using artificial intelligence on top of some of your other automation machinery?
For us, we're just starting to play with it. I mean, we've done some of that fun stuff like you did, Josh, where we type stuff in and see, especially like when we do flavor descriptions, we have our team write them up. And we type them in to see kind of compare and contrast. So we're just kind of starting to play with it. Obviously you read all these articles about how it's the future and it's gonna, take everybody's jobs. You just need ChatGPT for marketing. I don't know if we fully believe that. There's still that human element and that human, part of all this, but it's definitely pretty amazing, the output that it comes up with. And, some of the fun stuff you just mentioned, we've seen a lot of that fun stuff too. But yeah, we're just starting to play with that. I mean, we're very, focused on automation. We've worked with people like Thompson Duke and others over the last number of years to automate. We're doing, well over 2 million vapes a year. And so we've absolutely had to automate that side of the business to be able to keep up with that demand and come up with an automation that allows us to, rinse and repeat as we go to new markets. Because obviously the challenge in cannabis is you can't cross state lines. So you got to set up production in each state you go to. And so you've got to have a way and good partners that make good automated equipment, but that is repeatable and easily fixable, and that you can place in each market and quickly get up and running. And, our infused pre-rolls have been kind of the second level of that. We start out with a non-infused pre-roll, and automating that was much easier than the infused side of it. The infused side obviously has some different challenges with stickiness and, the oil and some of the stuff that Vlad talked about that we've had to work through as we've kind of ramped that up. We're doing, again, I think over 200,000 pre-rolls a month right now here in AZ alone, infused. And so figuring out how you can automate those is the only way to really grow, because, we've kind of manhandled a lot of it too and had a lot of employees. And as I think everybody knows nowadays, getting employees, at least the last few years, and retaining employees has been harder than ever. So, automating has allowed us to A, create consistency amongst the product, and B, really be able to scale in both our core market like Arizona, but also as we expand into these new markets as well.
Yeah, I'm seeing for hire signs at places I've never seen before, so it's kind of interesting. Vlad, how about you? Are you using ChatGPT or AI? And then maybe you can also discuss the role of automation and robotics in the cannabis industry and maybe some pros and cons.
Yeah. So for us, we are not using AI. For our machinery, we actually use like classic control systems to rely on the accuracy of the machine. So we haven't found a way to incorporate AI into what we're doing, but we do see the value of it long term. AI is definitely data driven, so I can see it, analyzing market trends and just kind of going through the data that we do have from the industry and then populating some answers from there. But like Josh mentioned, automation is going to be how these companies are going to survive the industry. It is really hard to retain workers. So being able to have machinery that you can depend on to work and accurately do what they're supposed to do is going to be the way that a lot of these companies are going to survive. Even with the pre-roll automation, I've seen machines go into facilities where it used to be maybe 40 to 50 people rolling pre-rolls all day. Mm-hmm. And now machinery has come in to automate that whole process. And that allows the business to operate a little bit slimmer and last a lot longer and use resources in other ways to stay alive. So automation for sure is going to be the answer moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Back to you, Vlad, with the emergence of new consumption methods in the cannabis market like vapes, infused pre-rolls, how do you adapt and innovate your equipment to accommodate the evolution or the evolving product formats?
Yeah, I think one of the things before releasing our machine was coming up with a design that was going to be timeless, right? Something that was going to last with the different types of oils that come out in the market. So our machines is designed so that you can actually see the oil move through our machine. And I think that's a huge asset because it allows processors to understand their oil a lot better. And it gives you a lot more control in being able to dispense it accurately into different devices, whether it be a pre-roll or a vape. So for us, when we released the machine, we thought about, okay, this is we want something that we're not going to have to change. We were able to get a patent on our design, on our dispense design, and it's held relevant until today, right? It's still relevant. We haven't had to make changes to it. We've made different upgrades to the machine, but our dispense system primarily has stayed the same. And we believe that it's going to stay like that for a while because of the way it was designed.
Josh, how do you address the challenges of scalability and flexibility in equipment to meet those evolving demands of the cannabis industry?
Yeah, no, like Vlad said, I mean, we've been fortunate to have partners like Thompson Duke and others that, the equipment has kind of it's evolved, but it's always been based around the same, format, like Vlad said. So that's allowed us to really get comfortable with certain automated suppliers and then build, work closely with them. So as things and issues come up, we have those relationships where we can work through if there's, something new that needs to be added or something that's differentiating as we, move to like a solventless, for example, where the oil is a little bit more, tricky than maybe distillate is. So I think having those partnerships and with some of the top automators and equipment manufacturers in the space and being in it a long time with them and working through these issues together has been really important for us and a big part of our success. And then I think we have a really strong ops and R&D team again that we've been with us for a long time. And so I think when we make new products and when we look at new products, a big part of our process of bringing a product to life is making sure there is scalability, both around, the production of it and the consistency on the shelf and how we're going to produce it. So as we go into making a new product, like launching solventless this summer out here in AZ, a big thing is, do we have the right equipment to make sure that the experience with the end product is the best for the consumer? Because, as you launch these new products, typically they're at a price premium, right? So when you have the consumer, you're asking the consumer to potentially pay more for a new product or a new way of smoking or consuming the product. We want to make sure that the experience and the quality is top notch in that. And so I think that's a big part of our process is like when we start developing it, making sure that's in the R&D. Can we consistently produce this at a high quality and at a scalable way? And can we work with our best partners to, make sure we have the right equipment to do that? And if there's issues we're seeing, to work through those issues with them hand in hand.
Yeah. Solventless is also just smart risk management, because if you have your compliance or regulatory agency come in and say, and pull everything off the shelf, solventless is the only thing that can remain on there. So it happened in Washington where butane and propane were having their own issues, and solventless was the only thing left on the shelf. So just as a risk management, I would advise anybody to do that. But speaking of what could happen in the industry, good or bad, how do you see the cannabis industry evolving in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I think what we're seeing is, like I mentioned earlier, as more states, you're seeing more and more states, have legalized programs, whether that's starting out to medical, and then lots of these states transitioning to recreational use. I think you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, Josh, like it's in a lot of states, it's from a tax standpoint. I know you mentioned in Washington, last year in Arizona was the same. The state generated more tax revenue from cannabis than they did from alcohol. So obviously you're getting more political support from that because, obviously the politicians, ways they can generate more taxes is always good for them. And if they can generate it without it maybe necessarily, requiring increases in, income taxes or things like that, it can usually get through a lot easier. So I think that side of it, you're seeing more and more people that from a monetary side of it, political monetary side of it, see the advantages of it. And I think then that rolls into, hey, we need our own programs. And then like you look at a state like Missouri and you see all the revenue coming in from the Kansases and the Nebraskas and the Iowas, I think it opens those states' eyes that, hey, we're not only are we, we're at a disadvantage here because we're not only, not collecting our own revenue, we're losing a lot of revenue because people can now go to these border states. And so I think all those things create a lot of momentum and open a lot of eyes that, that there's a ton of cannabis consumption out there, and you either adopt it as a state and put a program in place and embrace it, or you can lose tax revenue to it, and people are going to go find it, whether that's legally in other states of border states or whether that's illegally in the black market. But I think over the next 5 years, more and more of those states are just going to continue to adopt and continue to go rec, and that's only going to make the program and the use of cannabis expand. And I think you mentioned earlier in the podcast, like, how alcohol and tobacco views that. I mean, I think right now it's a concern, but I think when they can adapt it and be involved in it, then it'll go from being a concern to a big advantage. And I guess that's the advantage we always say right now of those guys not being in here is it allows people like us to build brands in an authentic way and in a natural way. Whereas, trying to go start an alcohol company today is very, very challenging because of the kind of monopolistic, or ownership of the distribution of alcohol. So I think the federal illegality has given a lot of us a runway to go do it. But when that slowly ticks away, alcohol and tobacco are going to come in because, they're seeing it. People see the Cali sober stuff. There's a whole generation that's younger that, doesn't have any interest in drinking and would much rather smoke because of the health benefits, of cannabis versus alcohol. And so, and of course, the health benefits of cannabis versus tobacco. So I think all those things are, slowly going to erode. And again, you see a market that, 10 years ago was, almost legal nowhere. And now it's going to be 45 billion in legal sales and with a lot of states still to come on the recreational and even the medical programs in general. It's going to be a huge category, just like alcohol and tobacco. And I think everybody's kind of opening their eyes from a political standpoint to a business standpoint on that.
Yeah, I will say that there's a misconception that these big businesses can come in and create something from the ground up that people want, whereas in reality, what they end up doing is they buy smaller private companies. Yeah. And I see it in the banking industry. I've created an alert system, when to buy, when to sell stocks and crypto, and automated that process. And some of these investors are saying, well, aren't you worried that a bank is going to come in and start from the ground up? Well, A, machine learning takes a while, and B, they're too bloated. They're not going to be able to move that fast. In the cannabis industry, the biggest example I can give you is Tilray. They were super proud about coming as a CPG company and not a cannabis company, and look what happened. The two zombies holding each other up with Hexo. They're not going to make it. So that's my prediction with them. Vlad, what is your prediction for the cannabis industry? What are you going to see the cannabis industry evolving in the next 5 years? What's that look like?
I think there's going to be a steady expansion, like Josh was mentioning, of growth in these newer states. The demand is definitely there. There's a lot of people who don't have access to cannabis legally and who enjoy it on a regular basis. So that expansion is going to be happening regardless. And then there's also a correction that's happening in states that have had legal cannabis available in their markets. And there's a correction of, okay, who's going to actually be able to stay alive and keep their brands going. So we're seeing both things happening, and both things are true. And in 5 years, if federal legalization isn't here, I think we're still going to be seeing similar atmosphere as today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, guys, we talked about a lot. Josh, if people want to know a little bit more about you, Timeless Vapes, where can they get some more information?
Yeah, I think our social or our marketing team does a great job on keeping our website up to date. We use that for a lot of the fun stuff we do. Like I said, we're a lifestyle brand. We love to do collabs with artists and events and working with the community. And so we love to showcase all that stuff across our social digital channels. So on our website, on our Instagram, on our LinkedIn, on various different social channels, we create a lot of content. We do a lot of fun stuff out there. So we want to make sure we're getting eyeballs to it. So I think if they visit our Timeless Vape site or they go to our alwaystimeless.co Instagram site, we have got a lot of fun stuff on there. A lot of the stuff we do around the partnerships, a lot of stuff we do around our products and the quality of the products. So I think either of those areas, and we're always happy for people to reach out and want to learn more. So they can reach out to us directly. There's places on the site and on the Instagram too, and our other social channels to hit us up and ask questions. And we'd love to answer anything we can. We love for people to see the brand and know the brand. And like I said, we've been around for 10 years, and that's because we feel like we really kind of connect well with that end consumer and connect in an authentic way with them and really make ourselves part of their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Vlad, if people want to get more information about you and Thompson Duke Industrial, where can they get more information?
Yeah, they can go directly to our website, thompsonduke.com. You'll be able to find spec sheets and detailed information on our machinery. We've just released our big gym and little gym, and that's our joint infusion lines. So we have great information on pre-roll infusion there also. So yeah, check us out. You can contact us direct. Our email is there, and our phone number should be available on our website also.
That's great. All right, I think with that, though, we're going to have to roll this one up. So I want to thank my guest, Josh Hershey, president of Timeless Vapes, and Vlad Valmy, sales director of Thompson Duke. Gentlemen, thanks again for being on the Talking Hedge.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.